September is almost here, and what you do to your lawn now can determine how it looks when spring arrives. Summer heat, drought, foot traffic, and repeated mowing may have left your grass thinner and weaker than it appears. The good news? Fall gives your lawn a valuable recovery window. In this video, you'll discover 4 important things to do before winter, from preparing the soil to protecting new growth. Get these steps right, and you can give your lawn a stronger foundation for spring instead of trying to repair months of damage later. Subscribe, and let's start with the step most homeowners overlook. Walk across your lawn in late August, and the damage from summer is usually easier to spot than the opportunity ahead. Some areas may look faded, compacted, or thinner than they were in June. Other sections may still look reasonably healthy, but underneath that surface, the roots are dealing with the effects of heat, dry soil, repeated mowing, and heavy foot traffic. September changes the equation. For cool season grass, the shift from intense summer heat toward cooler nights creates a valuable period for recovery. The blades may not be growing as aggressively as they did during the hottest part of summer, but the plant can redirect more of its energy toward root development when conditions become favorable again. That matters because spring growth starts with what survives the winter. A lawn entering cold weather with weak roots, bare areas, and compacted soil has fewer advantages when temperatures rise again. Instead of beginning spring with a strong root system and established turf, it may spend those first valuable weeks trying to recover from problems that were already visible the previous fall. Temperature isn't the only change. Moisture patterns usually become more manageable as summer fades. Rainfall can become more dependable, while cooler air reduces the amount of water lost through evaporation. Together, those conditions can make it easier for grass to establish new roots and recover from seasonal stress. There is another reason September deserves attention: timing. Some lawn projects become much harder once winter arrives. Compacted soil doesn't suddenly become easier to work with in spring. Bare areas don't repair themselves simply because temperatures eventually rise, and grass that needs feeding or reseeding has a limited window in which it can establish before cold weather slows growth. The goal isn't to make the lawn look perfect before October. Instead, you're trying to give the grass the conditions it needs to enter winter in better shape. That means looking below the surface, correcting the problems that restrict root growth, and using the remaining growing season intelligently. Think of September as a handoff between 2 seasons. Summer leaves the lawn with a list of problems, while fall provides a short opportunity to address them before winter takes over. The first priority is therefore not buying another bag of fertilizer or watering more often. It's finding out whether the soil itself is preventing your grass from using the water, air, and nutrients already available. Because if the root zone is cramped and poorly conditioned, everything you do afterward becomes less effective. Start with the places where grass struggles most. Walk over the high-traffic sections, inspect areas where water tends to sit, and compare them with parts of the lawn that remain thick and healthy. If one section feels hard under your feet while another feels springy, that difference can reveal what is happening beneath the grass. Compacted soil is often the hidden obstacle. Repeated walking, mowing, pets, and summer activity can press soil particles tightly together. When that happens, the spaces between those particles become smaller, leaving roots with less room to expand and making it harder for air and water to move through the root zone. You can test a small area without special equipment. Push a screwdriver or similar tool into moist soil. If it enters easily, the ground may have reasonable structure. If it stops quickly and the surrounding area feels unusually firm, compaction deserves attention before you invest heavily in other lawn treatments. That's where aeration can help. Core aeration removes small plugs of soil from the lawn and creates channels due to compacted surface. Those openings give water, air, and roots better pathways into the soil. The result isn't an instant green-up. The real benefit comes from creating better conditions for root growth during the months that follow. Timing matters here. For cool season turf, early fall can provide favorable growing conditions for recovery after aeration. The grass still has enough time to produce new roots while temperatures are becoming more comfortable. Avoid treating aeration as a universal requirement, though. A lawn with loose, well-draining soil may gain little from disturbing the surface. Thatch deserves a quick inspection, too. A thin layer of organic material between the grass blades and soil can be beneficial because it protects the surface and contributes to the lawn ecosystem. Problems arise when that layer becomes excessively thick and begins interfering with water and nutrient movement. In that situation, dethatching may be appropriate, but aggressive removal without a genuine thatch problem can create unnecessary stress. Drainage should also be considered before any major work. If rain repeatedly pools in the same location, the underlying problem may involve grading, soil structure, or drainage rather than a lack of fertilizer. Aerating the area may improve infiltration, but persistent standing water can require a more fundamental solution. Once the root zone has room to breathe, the next decision becomes much more useful. You're no longer asking how much fertilizer to buy. You can start asking what nutrients your grass actually needs before winter arrives. Once the soil is in better condition, feeding becomes a question of timing rather than quantity. Fall is not the moment to dump fertilizer onto the lawn simply because the grass looks tired. The objective is to give actively growing turf the nutrients it can use while avoiding an application that creates unnecessary growth or stress. Nitrogen deserves the most attention. Grass uses nitrogen to produce new leaves and maintain healthy green growth, which is why it appears in so many lawn fertilizers. But the amount your lawn needs depends on the grass type, soil fertility, previous applications, and the condition of the turf. A weak lawn doesn't automatically need a heavier dose. A soil test can remove much of the guesswork. Instead of assuming that a pale lawn is missing a particular nutrient, testing can reveal what is actually available in the soil. That information becomes especially useful when you are deciding whether additional fertilizer is justified or whether another problem is responsible for poor color. Fall timing also depends on the grass growing in your yard. Cool season turf generally enters a productive growth period as summer heat fades. Warm season grasses follow a different seasonal pattern and should not automatically be managed according to a cool season schedule. Local climate, grass species, and current growth are more reliable guides than a calendar date printed on a bag. Watch the weather before applying anything. A fertilizer application followed by appropriate watering can help move nutrients into the soil where roots can access them. Heavy rain immediately afterward, however, can move soluble nutrients away from the area you intended to feed. Extremely hot or dry conditions can also make aggressive feeding a poor choice. The type of fertilizer matters as well. Slow-release products provide nutrients gradually, while quick-release formulations become available more rapidly. Neither is automatically superior in every situation. Your choice should match the condition of the lawn, the product instructions, and how much growth is still expected before winter. Avoid the temptation to measure success by color alone. A sudden burst of dark green growth can look impressive, but excessive top growth may create more mowing and can leave the plant less balanced than you intended. A better result is steady growth that fits the season and supports the turf's overall condition. There's also no advantage in feeding simply because September has arrived. If the lawn already has adequate nutrients, adding more doesn't create extra health. The smarter approach is to determine what the grass needs, apply an appropriate product at the appropriate rate, and then allow the plant to use those resources naturally. With the soil prepared and nutrition handled thoughtfully, the lawn has a stronger foundation. But what happens when some sections are too thin to carry that foundation into spring? Those bare and weak areas need a different September decision. Look closely at the lawn before deciding what a thin area needs. A section with a few visible gaps is very different from a patch where almost no grass remains. Treating both situations the same way can waste seed, time, and the remaining part of the fall growing season. Small gaps are often ideal candidates for overseeding. When existing grass is present but the coverage has become thin, introducing new seed can increase density without completely rebuilding the area. The important part is getting the seed where it can actually make contact with the soil. Seed sitting on top of thick grass, leaves, or debris has a much harder time establishing. Bare patches require more preparation. Remove loose dead material from the surface and expose enough soil for the new seed to settle into. You don't need to dig up the entire lawn. Concentrate your effort where the turf has genuinely disappeared, then create a surface that gives the seed a reasonable chance to germinate. Seed selection matters more than many homeowners realize. Choose a grass type that matches the existing lawn, local climate, sunlight conditions, and expected traffic. Mixing a completely different turf species into an established lawn can produce differences in color, texture, and growth that remain noticeable long after the patch has filled in. Moisture becomes critical once the seed is down. Newly germinating grass has a very limited root system, so the surrounding soil cannot be allowed to repeatedly dry out during the establishment period. Light, consistent moisture is usually more useful than occasional flooding because the goal is to keep the seed zone suitable for germination without creating standing water. Avoid burying the seed too deeply. Grass seed generally performs best when it has close contact with the soil surface and access to the moisture and oxygen required for germination. A thin covering of suitable material can help protect it, but a heavy layer can make emergence more difficult. Traffic deserves attention during this stage. Walking across a freshly seeded patch can disturb the seed and compact the surface before roots have had a chance to develop. Keep pets, children, and unnecessary foot traffic away from vulnerable areas until the new turf is established enough to handle normal use. Don't expect every patch to fill at the same speed. Sunlight, soil temperature, moisture, seed type, and the condition of the surrounding turf all influence establishment. Some areas may show new blades quickly, while others need more time. Resist the urge to keep adding seed every few days simply because one section looks slower than another. By giving thin areas a proper chance to establish before winter, you're not just improving the lawn's appearance for fall, you're increasing the amount of living turf that can enter spring ready to grow. There is still one more piece of the September puzzle, though. Even a well-fed lawn with fresh new grass can lose ground if your regular fall maintenance keeps working against it. By October, your lawn should be moving away from the routines that helped it survive summer. Watering, mowing, leaf management, and foot traffic all need to respond to changing conditions. The goal isn't to keep doing exactly what worked in July, it's to reduce unnecessary stress while the grass prepares for colder weather. Mowing is one of the easiest places to make a useful adjustment. As temperatures moderate and growth patterns change, avoid cutting the lawn extremely short just to reduce the number of future mowing sessions. Removing too much leaf tissue at once can weaken the plant and leave less surface area available for photosynthesis. Keep the mowing height appropriate for your particular grass rather than chasing a specific height that works everywhere. Watering should evolve with the weather too. September may still bring warm, dry periods, but rainfall and evaporation can change quickly as fall progresses. Check the soil before turning on the irrigation system. If the ground is already adequately moist, another watering adds little value. When rainfall becomes more dependable, gradually reduce supplemental irrigation instead of following a summer schedule automatically. Leaves create another decision. A light layer of leaves can be managed without panic, but thick, wet piles left sitting on the lawn can block sunlight and keep the grass surface damp. Regular removal or appropriate mulching prevents the turf underneath from being smothered while returning useful organic material to the soil when conditions allow. Your lawn also becomes more vulnerable to compaction when the ground is wet. That means timing matters when you're moving equipment, hosting outdoor activities, or repeatedly walking across the same areas. A saturated lawn can be pressed much more easily than dry soil, undoing some of the improvements you've made to the root zone. Weed pressure deserves attention before winter as well. Don't automatically reach for a treatment simply because you see a few weeds. First, consider whether they are competing aggressively with the turf and whether the product is appropriate for the grass species and season. Avoiding unnecessary applications is part of good lawn management, not a sign that you're ignoring the problem. Late-season mowing also deserves observation rather than a fixed date. Continue cutting while the grass is actively growing, but don't assume a calendar tells you when the final mowing must happen. Growth rate, weather, and grass type provide better clues. Leaving the lawn excessively tall going into winter can create problems, while cutting it too aggressively can create a different set of stresses. These adjustments may seem minor compared with aerating, feeding, or reseeding, but they protect the work you've already completed. And once those 4 September decisions are working together, you can stop thinking of fall as a collection of chores and start following a simple timeline that carries the lawn all the way towards spring. September is where the preparation begins, but the results won't be visible all at once. Think of the next several months as one continuous process. Each stage has a different job, and knowing what to do and what to leave alone can keep a good fall recovery from turning into another spring repair project. During September, focus on assessment and preparation. Walk the entire lawn instead of judging it from the driveway. Mark thin areas, notice places where water disappears slowly, and identify sections that receive heavy traffic. This is also the time to address genuine compaction problems, prepare damaged areas for new seed, and make sure any nutrient application is based on the lawn's actual needs. As fall settles in, let the grass establish. Newly seeded areas need consistent attention while roots develop, but established turf doesn't need constant intervention. Keep mowing according to active growth, adjust irrigation as rainfall and temperatures change, and avoid turning every minor color variation into a reason for another treatment. Mid-fall is a good time to observe rather than experiment. Look for thicker coverage, stronger new growth, and areas that are still struggling despite the changes you've made. If something continues to fail, the pattern itself can provide useful information. A recurring wet spot, persistent bare patch, or unusually weak section may point toward an underlying issue that fertilizer alone cannot solve. As temperatures continue falling, maintenance becomes lighter. Remove heavy leaf buildup before it blocks sunlight from reaching the turf. Keep unnecessary traffic off saturated ground and continue mowing while the grass is actively growing. Once growth slows substantially, there is less reason to keep disturbing the lawn. Winter changes the priorities completely. You aren't trying to make grass grow during every cold week. The goal is to protect the condition you've built. Avoid unnecessary traffic when the ground is frozen or saturated, and don't keep applying products simply because the lawn isn't visibly changing. Then spring arrives. Instead of immediately treating the entire lawn, take another slow walk across the property. Compare density, color, drainage, and the areas you identified in September. Some concerns may have disappeared naturally, while others will show a clear pattern that deserves attention. That comparison gives you something most homeowners never have, a record of what actually worked. You prepared the soil where necessary, supplied nutrition according to need, repaired weak areas, and adapted routine care as the seasons changed. None of those actions required treating every problem with another product. Together, they gave the lawn better conditions to handle winter and begin spring growth from a stronger position. The biggest lesson is simple. Spring lawn care doesn't really begin in spring. By the time the first warm days arrive, much of the groundwork has already been decided, and that is why September deserves more attention than it usually gets. The lawn you want next spring starts with the decisions you make before winter, not the products you buy after winter. The best spring lawns aren't created by rushing outside in April. They're built months earlier while the grass still has time to recover. Start with these 4 September steps, stay consistent through fall, and let winter protect the progress you've made. Watch the next video for the spring mistake that can undo it all.